Hi there, I am here to give you a quick tutorial on shadow wrap short row corners. Specifically, I am using the Rays of Light blanket border corners as an example. Here I have a swatch worked. This is worked in the half fisherman's rib pattern from the border of the Rays of Light blanket. And I've started to work my shadow wrap short row so you can see the angle starting to form. And so here, so this first stitch is just slipped and ignored. This is a shadow wrap, shadow wrap, shadow wrap, shadow wrap, and shadow wrap. And then the rest of these are single stitches waiting to be wrapped. And so you can see that the shadow wrap hangs out with its original stitch, and they pair together quite nicely, and this is why they're called the twin stitch as well. So I'm going to show you how to work both the knit version of the shadow wrap as well as the purl version of the shadow wrap, and then I'm going to show you how to turn and begin increasing the corner as well. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and show you how to begin working in both of these stitches. We are going to first knit our 3 I-cord stitches. The pattern is then purl, knit 1 below, purl, and you can see here we've come to the first stitch to be wrapped, and this is a knit stitch. So what we are going to do is pick up this shoulder of the stitch below. So you can see that we're going to grab it with the right hand needle and put it up over onto the left hand needle, and I'm using my thumb to hold on to the original stitch itself so that it doesn't slip around. So again, this is the shoulder right here, and what we're going to do is work a knit into it. So now we have a knit stitch that's worked into the shoulder or base or mother stitch. I refer to them all in the same manner, and that's over here on the right hand needle. And we're going to slip that back to the left hand needle, and you can see now that we have 2 stitches coming out of the same base mother stitch right here, and this is the twin stitch or shadow wrap. So what we're going to do is turn our work and begin working back in the opposite direction. Work in pattern, and the last 3 stitches are slipped since this is an I-cord edge. Alright, so you can see that the stitch we just worked is right here, and so the next stitch that we're going to shadow wrap is going to be a purl style shadow wrap. So we're going to work until we reach. Alright, we have reached the stitch to be shadow wrapped, and this time it's a purl stitch. We're going to shadow wrap purlwise now. So you want to bring the working yarn in front, slip the stitch from the left hand needle to the right hand needle, and again we're going to be working out of this base stitch. Slip it up onto your left hand needle and purl. Again, you want to kind of use your finger or your thumb to hold the original stitch so it doesn't slip off your needle when you're working the purl. So now you can see there are 2 stitches coming out of that original base stitch, and they're both purled. For this blanket, we're going to put the working yarn back in the front so that we can maintain the stitch pattern that we've been working with. Turn and work the wrong side. So you can see that the yarn is going to go follow the path of the purl on the front side. So then we'll bring the working yarn back to purl and complete working in pattern. Slip these last 3 stitches. Alright, so now we've worked 2 shadow wraps. We've worked both a knit and a purl. I'm going to work another knit and purl, and then we'll be ready to start increasing our corner on the other side. So now, I'll lay this down so you can see it without me moving it. You can see, here we are. Alright, you can see the shadow wrap stitches each pair up nicely with one another. And you can contrast them with just normal knit stitches that are hanging out on the needle. All right, so now you've seen how this works. Let's go ahead and increase our corner. We're going to work one row of just I-cord, not attached to anything. So knit, and I'm just going to go slip those back. No need to turn to the wrong side for just that. All right, drop your work. Okay, so this is the first row that's going to increase our stitches on the other side of the corner. So now we've reached a shadow wrap. This is the first shadow wrap we worked, and the key about the shadow wrap is that you treat them as if they are one stitch. So here we are just going to purl these twin stitches together as if they're one stitch. Now, before we turn to work the wrong side, we need to work another wrap into this stitch, because otherwise we're going to get a gap. So again, you work it the same way. You're going to work a knit into this shoulder and slide it back onto the needle. So now you have 3 stitches coming out of that single stitch, or the original stitch plus 2 wraps. And you can contrast that with the next stitch next to it. And this also helps you remind yourself of where you need to turn in your work when you're working the corners, which if you're working sort of a standard wrap and turn corner like you might see in the 10-stitch blanket, I sometimes have a hard time telling the difference between a stitch that needs to be wrapped and a stitch that's already been wrapped. So again, we are on the right side now. We are working, this is a purl stitch. All right, so this is the first stitch that's been sort of triple wrapped. We're just going to treat all of those as one. You just put your needle through them all and knit. All right, now we're going to wrap this next stitch again. It's a purl stitch. You want to make sure you get the correct base loop. Go ahead, hold your stitches, purl. Slip back with yarn in front. All right, a little hard to finagle there with the maintain the camera angle, huh? All right, so I'm just showing you how I'm slipping with the yarn in front. There's all those 3 stitches. If you were doing this in a pattern that was not this knit purl ribbing, then I would suggest that you wrap the yarn around and back. But I really want to maintain this pattern, so that's why I am doing it this way. And if you'd like a different perspective on this, I have another video posted that is called something along the lines of shadow wrap short row corners in garter stitch. It's done for my El Rey Viejo washcloth, and that one will show you how to do the purl shadow wrap in a pattern where it doesn't matter. Now, so this is the first stitch that we need to actually work the knit one below. And then this is a purl. We're going to purl all those stitches together. And now we're going to work another shadow wrap right here. This is a knitwise shadow wrap. We're working it into that shoulder, slipping it back. See those 3 stitches? Turn your work. Work in pattern. And if you hear snoring, that's my dog snoring. And if you hear throwing, that's my kids throwing blocks on the floor. All right, right side. We're going to get there, work in pattern until you reach the next stitch to be wrapped. All right, so we're going to see all these stitches hanging out. That's actually 1 stitch. Knit those stitches together and work another shadow wrap into this next stitch. Slip it back, turn, purl, and we slip these last 3 stitches. All right, so I'll lay it down for a minute here, and you can see that the pattern is taking shape. We're just following, we're working in pattern. Here's your joined stitch. This is the corner right here that you're forming, so you'll see this diagonal line, but you can see that as we are following this, we're maintaining the pattern, and I'm going to turn, and you can see that the pattern is being maintained on both sides. So I'm going to keep working, and I will show you again when it's done. All right, so we've got one last stitch to be wrapped. Here we go. We're going to work in pattern. Is there yogurt on that? Okay, do you need Mama to fix that? Okay, can you take it over to the kitchen sink, and I'll wipe it off. Yes, sink. All right, so here is the last stitch. We're going to purl. And then here we would just go straight ahead and work this is our join stitch. In this sample, I'm just gonna knit it. So, all right, so here I have my completed shadow wrap short row corner worked in half fisherman's rib and I-cord. You can see that the pattern is maintained. You can see this is where the short row wraps are right here. And if we flip the knitting to the wrong side, you can see that the pattern is maintained on the wrong side as well. If you stretch this out, looks great. So that's how I work my shadow wrap short row corners for the Rays of Light blanket border. The key really is to have that second set of wraps on the stitches as you're increasing to avoid any holes. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful. You can find my pattern at Scrappy Daisy Knits on Ravelry, and you can find me across social media as Scrappy Daisy Knits. Happy knitting!